Hi guys, it's Dakota. Hope everyone is doing well. So I want to talk a little bit. Today's topic is full moon versus dark moon magic. And my quick little disclaimer, as you know, everything that I talk about, unless I specifically say that this information came specifically from this person, that is this person's way of doing something or whatever. Everything that I talk about and that I say and that I do, it's just my way. It's how I do things. And, as much as I can tell you about why I believe so, I certainly will share that with you. So I wanted to talk about the dark moon and the new moon. I'm sorry, the dark moon and the new moon. Those as well as the full moon, and how I feel about doing magic during those times. So I would say that the majority of my magic I do during the dark moon, which some people refer to as the new moon. And I don't have issues. I don't take issues with any of that. However you want to claim that is entirely up to you. For me, how I see it is that, the dark moon is when, it's dark, like it's dark. And then when you get that first, and it's usually dark for about 3 days, 2 days, 3 days, before it starts to get that little tiny sliver of silver, and that first little start of the crescent moon, of the waxing moon, and that is referred to as Diana's bow. And so for me, that little sliver represents then the new moon, because the light then is starting to grow. So that's just how I see it. So, and then the dark moon energy is when it's, when you don't see that sliver. You can still see, in some cases, you can still see the moon itself. You might see some glow behind it, but you don't actually see that sliver of moon, at least where I am, here on the East Coast, and even when I was practicing on the West Coast. So a lot of books and teachers and witches of the wise, they talk about the dark moon energy and how that is a time of releasing those things, just getting rid of those things that don't serve our highest good, shedding that old layer of garbage, baggage, just that stuff that isn't serving our highest good. And so we wait until it is, a lot of folks will wait until it is the dark moon to do that releasing. Now, some will also tell you that the dark moon is a time of no magic, that's a time of reflection, and it's a time where things should be silent and where we should go within. And if we look at it in terms of the moon, and we just let's just say that the moon as an entity, okay, she works really hard as she's growing, she's waxing, and then she becomes full, and then she sort of is working hard on letting go and going to bed. It's like one of those, 15-hour, in this case, 12-hour work days where you get up first thing in the morning and you're nice and chirpy, and then by the evening you're a little bit tired and you want to just kind of go to sleep and just rest. So if we look at the entire cycle of full moon to dark moon, we can kind of look at it in that way, where it's just, even though it takes all those days to do it, about 2 weeks I think it is. I think it's 2 weeks, 21 days, something like that. I've never really counted the days, to be quite honest with you. It doesn't matter. I use what I sense and what I see, and not necessarily hooked on the calendar per se. Where was I? Anyway, so that so a lot of people will use that dark moon as a time of just rest and reflection and inner work, and just going within and doing some inner work, and they don't really use the dark moon as a time for magical things. And that would be saved for then the waxing moon, and of course the full moon, where she is at her brightest and at her most energetic, I will say. And that may be so. That may be so, because she's full and she's bright, and I get that and I understand that. However, I do the majority of my work, whether it is releasing or whether it is manifesting. I work the dark moon energies. And not to say that I don't use the full moon, because I most certainly do, and I use it a lot. So I sort of use the dark and the light moon quite often, because if I'm really in working on stuff, then having 2 moons a month that I, full or dark in a month, I can get a lot accomplished, because if I'm working with those specific energies. Now, if we're just talking about the moon and its energies, I'm going to tell you that there are many phases to the moon, right? I mean, there's many phases to the moon. You have the dark moon, and then you have that sliver. Like I said, that's the start of the waxing, where she's growing, and that's a time where we're bringing in the light, and we're bringing in those things that are drawn, that we're trying to draw to us, the manifestation, etc. But during that time between the dark moon and the full moon, there's different phases. We have the first quarter and all these different phases where you can still be working on things, on energetic things, as well as once she's full and then she starts to wane, there's still magic that you can do during all those times. So if you wanted to, in my opinion, my humble opinion, you can do magic every day if you have to. So, and that's, of course, that's coming from me. That's what I believe, and that is how I work. So for me, what I did this for December, and again, and let me apologize if I repeat myself, like if I've already talked about something and it isn't in the title of my video, pardon the old dried up pea brain, but sometimes I forget that I've already maybe mentioned something in a video. And of course, I can't go back and, rewatch all of my videos. So sometimes I do repeat myself, and I apologize. But maybe you didn't watch that video, so this will be new information for you. So in December of 2019, just this last year, I did a dark moon ritual. It wasn't necessarily for the moon. I do my devotional practice and daily, and the dark moon is specific to my deity, and so there was a special thing that I wanted to do on that night, and so I did that. But at the same time, I was wanting to do magic for the end of a decade, for the end, not only of just 2019, but the end of a decade, because we were leaving the teens and we were going into the 20s. And so it was really, I felt very strongly about doing this magic. So, so it was really an awesome ritual. It was solitary. I do it by myself. And as I've mentioned, most of my My personal magical working, I do alone. My circle, my tribe, we do get together and we circle for moons and also for Sabbats, but then it is group. You know, it is a group focus and a group intention. So, but when I'm doing my magical, my personal stuff, it is solitary, and I prefer it that way because everybody has a different, even has a different mindset on how you feel an intention should be done for that particular purpose. So even if I came to any of you out there who, and I said, this is the magic that I want, and this is the magic that I'm doing, and this is how I'm going to do it, and I need everybody on board with that. I mean, you could send your intentions for that, but we don't all vibrate at the same frequency, and, you know, perhaps I'm really focused on, at this particular moment in time, like this particular minute, this particular second, maybe I'm doing a candle magic and I'm watching a flame and I see something that just, you know, whether it was a message directly sent to me or I saw something in the flame or whatever it was, if you were in my circle, perhaps you didn't catch that. So, I don't know. For me, when I'm working my magic, my personal magic, I really prefer to do it myself, unless it is something that is just a group. We're just doing this magical intention, and we can all, like for the first of the year, it's fun to get together and just do let's set our own individual personal goals for the year or whatever it is, and then we can all get together and we eat, you know, we might bring in a practical thing that we're going to do, you know, something fun, a project that we're going to do while we're in circle. And each individual, we all work on our own projects while we're in our circle. So we have that cone of energy, you know, we have that cone of power that we've created when we set up the circle and cast the circle, etc. And now we're just sitting down and we're doing our activity, we're doing our project. And even though it's the goal of the project was we're setting that intention for, this is our goal for the year, and it could be whatever you want it to be, we each are working on our very own. So then there again, it is our very own energy. So like I'm not working with this person over here or this person over, everybody is working on their own, using their own energy, their own vibration, their own thoughts about how they want to create that manifestation for, you know, for the beginning of the year. Okay. So yeah, I like to do my personal practice, magical practice, that is, doing magic alone. So the last moon of the year was really, really important for me because not only was it for my devotional practice, but I had decided that I was going to do a releasing of, you know, that decade and move into, you know, 2020. But actually it was just going to be the releasing of. And I ended up not doing a releasing. And I actually didn't really end up doing it for the entire decade of the teens. Because I couldn't remember everything that had happened, you know, in the teens. Like, but what I do know is that I decided that let's just take 2019. Let's just focus on that. And everything that I had, anything that I could come up with that was a releasing, that was something that, you know, wasn't serving my highest good, felt really petty to me. It just felt really petty. And it didn't feel, you know, I just didn't feel like it was any kind of worthy magic, if you will, to be asking the gods or the universal powers or the powers that be, whatever, to interject with that. I mean, that's something that, you know, I can get through and I can release on my own. And And I like to do that. I don't like to ask. I don't like to do magic for every single thing in my life. Only those things that really have meaning, and things that maybe I've really tried to work on this and either I just can't release it, or I just can't, it's just not coming to fruition. And then I'll ask, for that magical intervention. But when it was just really stupid, petty stuff, and I'm like, well, so what I did was, and this was all because I had these things written down that I was going to work on. And as I sat down in my meditation after I did my my devotional work, I sat down and I was like, nah, I'm not going to do this. This is just petty. So then I decided, you know what? What I'm going to do is I'm going to manifest what I want for 2020. And so I set goals for 2020, and how I did it without going into the details was just I set the goals. These are my goals. These are what I want to work towards. These are my intentions, and etc. And what I did then was a removing of obstacles. I did a gratitude for 2019. I had a fantastic 2019. It was a really great year for me. It was very transformative. It was spiritual ahas. It was a big growth period for me. It was a successful year for me personally and business-wise. And so I did gratitudes on the dark moon. I did gratitudes. And then I did a removing of obstacles. These are my goals for 2020. And as a dark moon in a time of releasing, I release any of those obstacles. I remove any of those obstacles that may stand in my way of my achieving the goals for 2020. Something to that effect is how I did it. So then what I decided at that moment while I was in the meditation was that on the full moon of 2020 January, that I would do a follow-up, if you will, of that dark moon goal intention. So I was going to follow up on the full moon and with a then manifestation, just like really working on the manifestation of those goals and what it was that I had to do personally to work on myself to achieve those goals for 2020. But when the full moon came, and I'm usually pretty sensitive, and I can feel the energies of the moon. It doesn't make me wacko crazy or anything like that, but I can feel the intensity of the moon. And so as the days were getting closer, I wasn't even feeling it. So long story short, I ended up, I am the kind of person too that, if I'm not feeling it, if I'm not in the mood, if I don't feel good, I'm not, and I'm not in the right frame of mind, I'm not doing magic, because I know for a fact that is going into the universe. That energy is going into the universe, and I didn't want that. So I ended up not doing anything for the full moon, and I was really bummed, and it was just sort of it was a disappointment, really. It was a disappointment, and it was kind of a letdown after everything that I had done for the Dark Moon Ritual to set up 2020. And then a few days ago, it hit me. or last week, I think it was probably, it just sort of started hitting me through my meditations and journey work and stuff, was that I work so much with the dark moon that I decided, since I did the last dark moon of the year, that I would start with the dark moon of 2020 to complete or to solidify the goals that I had for 2020. And so I did it in a very different manner than I normally did. And that was through scrying with my crystal ball. And as you can see, the picture at the beginning of this video in the crystal ball, the reflection was almost like an eye looking back at me. And I felt that it was so appropriate that at the dark moon, a time of where most would say that this is a time, and I do myself as well, but it is a time of inner reflection, looking within, going within, that there was this eye really looking back at me through the crystal ball. And that was all the confirmation that I needed to know that I have a lot of work to do in 2020 to make these goals that I set in at the dark moon of 2019, and to make them actually happen and manifest. It's not going to be handed to me on a silver platter, and I do have some inner work that I need to look at and reflect on in order to make these things come to fruition. So I thought it was just a really awesome experience using the dark moon energy for that. And I was disappointed that I didn't go dark moon to the first full moon, but I did go last dark moon to the first dark moon of 2020. And I chose scrying, which I don't typically scry in my stones or my crystal balls. Well, not my stones, but in a crystal ball. I do, but I'm fire, so I scry fire. But most interesting. I hope everyone had a terrific 2020 full moon if you celebrated it. I hope that you had a fantastic 2020 dark moon if you celebrate it. And I wish everyone love and have a great week. Until next time. Bye.